There is something so transformative about good world building, and you can't talk about world building without mentioning Tolkien. He's the pioneer of fantasy world building. Each of his stories on my bookshelf create a world that acts as a portal to a distant land or an ancient kingdom filled with untold tales. And that's what I want to capture with today's build, a tiny world nestled between the books of my bookshelf. You've seen this before, right? I'm just building a Book Nook. If you haven't seen it, go check out some of the awesome projects there are on YouTube. There are so many awesome Book Nooks. I love seeing the miniature worlds within a bookshelf. So I'm going to build a wizard study Book Nook. Now, the reason for that is A, because I think it's awesome, and B, because I need a place to house my miniature Audible library. If you haven't seen that video, go check it out. It's a fun project I think anybody can do, but it is going to dictate some of the designs for this build, right? It is the reason I am doing a wizard study. I want a sort of library that can house these shelves with my books on them. Am I the only one who gets a little bookshelf envy when they see somebody else's epic librarian setup? So for the design, obviously I need to incorporate all the books that I'm going to be using for my other project. Once I get my final dimensions, that may change the design, but I'm just gonna sketch out everything I want to make this look like an awesome little wizard study. Turns out my cute little sketch, yeah, that doesn't fit in the real world. It became so clear so fast. As soon as I went into the world of 3 dimensions and put in some actual measurements, that design was not going to work. So I'm gonna go ahead and make some changes inside of the 3D software, redesign my whole thing, treat this as my sketch, and we'll go from there. All right, now that I've got a design that's actually going to fit in the real world, I can move forward with this. So with the design here, obviously you saw I simplified it way down. So I'm gonna keep the wizard study. I want a place for writing desk. Obviously I need the bookshelves in the back, and then I've added that fireplace that I think will be able to add some cool LEDs later that will really make this still fit within the wizarding study vibe that I'm trying to go here. It just won't be as grand and as cool as the initial sketch, but I'll jump out to the shop now and cut out the box for our base to start building. Sweet, found a pre-finished piece. This is not needed, but I think it's gonna make it look a little bit nicer in the end. Here I'm cutting out both sides and the back. I added some tape to this to help prevent tear out. And then I ended up cutting some little strips to help me attach these and give it a little bit more strength. I'll use my staple gun to hold it in place while the glue dries. With the box finished, I can go grab some foam, get the whole thing lined, and start working on the stonework. That's just weird. Why do I keep the foam in the creepy attic? Oh, love that sound. Okay, I had a thought. Now, hang with me, this could be painful, but I want to try something. I've seen some people on the internet use this on a full-size wall. I think it might just work for our miniature that I'm building here. So I'm going to test this out. What it is using plaster or drywall compound to make a layer of mud on the wall and then carving out individual stones. I'm thinking if I do that, let it dry, I might be able to just carve in the brick and already have it kind of look like brick because of the plaster and the way that that looks. I don't know if it's gonna be any better than foam. Might be a pain to work with, but I want to try that. So I'm gonna go ahead and test this out and we'll see if it works. I don't know why I do that every time. Maybe it's, maybe I think that might be mandatory. You might have to do that. In fact, I think it says something about it on the box. Let's see. Yeah. All right, now we know. is not working. That looks like crap. Okay. Well, now we know. This might just be because I super suck at this, but I cannot recommend this. It is not working at all how it was in the old brain. So I'm gonna go back to foam. I've got all my rows now. I'm gonna go in and mark out all my columns. Actually, no, I think I'm getting ahead of myself. I think I'm gonna start with the floor. I'll lay the floor and then I'll put the stone on top. That's what I'll do. If you're wondering why the funky jig, well, I don't have the proper tools for this, so we make do with what we've got. I needed this to be thinner, and this is the thinnest foam that I've got. So I think that's gonna work out great for us. Did take a little bit of time, but I think it's gonna work out. Okay, I'm gonna use these popsicle sticks to lay the floor, glue it, stain it, and then we'll start working on the walls. Let's hope I'm fast enough for this. What are the odds of that? There's quite a few larger gaps in the floor, so I'm going to mix up some wood glue and sawdust to be able to fill those gaps. Turns out I think I had some foam left in my dust collection system, so there's quite a bit of foam in this concoction. Okay, I'm gonna let that dry before I come back and do a sanding on it to get rid of that foam that I accidentally left in there. But I'm gonna start working on the electronics. So as you saw in the very basic design, my main electronics are going to be a fireplace. I want a nice warm, flickering flame in the fireplace. So I'm gonna focus on that. I may integrate some candles or something else, but we'll see once I dive in and start working on the electronics. I stole my wife's LED candle so I could take it apart and use the LED inside for my fireplace. I'm not going to be teaching you any bad habits by showing you all my solder work. However, while I was working on getting the electrical run for the fireplace, I've been debating candles and adding some other lights throughout, and I really just think that I'm going to need more. The light really pulls a lot of weight when it comes to these miniatures and really makes them feel more alive than they are. But what I'm thinking is I've got this fireplace down in the corner. It's gonna be pretty busy over here with the books. I'll have the reading desk and everything over here. I want to add a chandelier. I don't think I want to put candles around. I want a chandelier hanging that's going to have all the light that will illuminate the whole room. One thing that I also decided is I think I'm going to put a roof on this. Obviously, if I'm going to put a chandelier, I need a roof to hang it from, but that really makes the Book Nook feel. It really makes it, feel like a world inside of the bookshelf to have it all enclosed that you have to look in. With the open roof, it looked more like a diorama as far as what I've seen so far, but I think adding a rooftop on this is going to make a difference. So I'm going to do that, hang a chandelier from it, and then add the electrical to it. I do think I'm going to have to custom make this chandelier, so I'll 3D model that up and print it. With our chandelier temporarily hung, we can now turn this foam into stone. Here I'm marking out the individual stones, adding some texture with a little bit of tin foil. That's our first round of foam in, so I can move on to building the fireplace. I thought about 3D printing this hearth, but my designs were all too complex and I wanted to keep it more simple for this build. Finally, we're on to my favorite step, which is painting. It's the first step in which we go from, working with foam to making it feel like we're actually working with stone and a real miniature model here. So the first thing I'm gonna do is start by sealing the foam with a base coat and primer. I'll be using Mod Podge and black acrylic to set that base tone to establish the darks that I want and also to seal the foam with the Mod Podge. For the base coat, I go in with a tan color over that black primer. The black stays in the cracks and shadows while the tan sits on top as a mid-tone. Right away, it gives the wall depth instead of that flat single color. I'm not trying to be too precious with this. I don't need to cover every single thing because, like I mentioned, those blacks will pop through and show more depth. To take that variation further, we're going to be adding some different colors to establish subtle shifts. Some lean warmer, some cooler, and honestly, this step always intimidates me a little. It looks so bright and chaotic at first, but I know it's worth pushing through because once everything is layered together, those colors become the subtle details that really sell the effect. After we've established some of our variations, I want to pull out some of those details by adding a dry brush layer. With very little paint, I skim the raised edges and the texture suddenly just pops out. The more layers I build up, the more it starts to feel like weathered stone instead of foam. And finally, the black wash. Easily my favorite step. The thin paint seeps into the cracks, unifying all those scattered colors and shadows into one cohesive surface. It tones down the values of the highs, deepens the lows, and suddenly all those random colors start to make sense. This is the moment the wall looks like it belongs in the wizard's study. Oh, this thing is really coming to life. This looks so good. I'm so excited about the way it's turning out. I think our next step is going to be set dressing. So I'm going to turn to my 3D printer and start printing out the desks, the books, the shelves, everything I need to really build out the environment here that we're making. Since one of the main purposes of this Wizard Study Book Nook is to house my miniature Audible library, I'm going to start with the miniature books. I'm not going to show the entire process here. If you want to see that, check out my other video where I dive into the actual making of my miniature audio library. Along with those books, I'm also going to be printing out bookshelves, a writing desk, and some other objects that might be found in a wizard study. And since all these objects are going to need a coat of paint, let's jump into a painting montage. Now, I'm not just going to fill this wizard study with 3D printed parts. I'm going to be building out some handcrafted things as well. In fact, one of the things I love about making miniatures is the barrier for entry is so low. Oftentimes, materials are readily available. You can find them outside or they're super cheap. For me, I love sourcing my stuff from outside. In fact, for our wizard's fireplace, I'm going to find some wood from my wood pile. Here we go. Also gather a few pine needles, a small branch, and some cotton from my kid's toy. This is going to help sell the flame effect inside of our fireplace. So I'll light it up and throw it in. There's nothing quite like pyrotechnics to make things come alive. And to further make this place look lived in, I'm going to use some clay to make some tiny candles. I might have got a little bit carried away with some of the details here, but it was fun. Our wizard's obviously very scholarly, so I'm going to be building out tons and tons of different scrolls. I'll age the paper, maybe add some drawings to some of them, mix it up with some of the different variety of sizes, scales, colors, different ages that they might have come from. I might even add some wax droplets onto some of these. This may look a little bit chaotic and messy, but he's a cleanly wizard. We're gonna build him a broom out of the pine needles and branches that I picked up. Now with everything I built out so far, the walls are kind of bare, so I want to get some pictures, some paintings on the walls. Obviously, he's got to have some cool paintings. I'm imagining this wizard. Obviously, he's in a fantasy world. It's my world. I can do what I want. Little Bob Ross there for you. But I want to use some of my own paintings to hang on the wall. I think that would be an awesome way to incorporate more of myself into this book nook. I'm an illustrator. If you've seen any of my previous paintings, I like to build out drawings of the fantasy creatures that I love to imagine. So I'd like to, think that he's in here studying some of these fantasy creatures, and that's some of the paintings he's got on his wall because of that. So I'm going to incorporate paintings of unicorn, werewolf, mermaids, different fantasy creatures that I've painted. I'll include those as paintings that are hung on his wall that he might look at for studies, or paintings that maybe he made himself in his travels. Am I basically making a wizard study as if I were a wizard? Maybe. That might be what's happening here. Done. That's everything. We've got everything printed, painted, sculpted, whatever it was, it's here on the table. Now, I'm not going to show you every little detail that I put into this, but I think you guys have waited long enough. It's time to get all this inside of our wizard study and take a look at the finished product. Let's do it. I'm so happy with the way this turned out. It's so awesome having this fantasy world tucked away into my bookshelf. If you haven't already, go check out the Audible library that I built for this. It goes hand in hand with this project and it's a fun build. And if you want to go on more world building adventures with me, get subscribed. I've got a lot of other fun creative projects coming, but that's it for now. Thanks for watching.